Today we're on Cwmcarn Forest Drive, a place lived by hundreds of people in South Wales. Recently, Cwmcarn Forest Drive has suffered the larch disease, which means the trees get infected and they die. And this is very contagious for trees. So the community only found out a couple of weeks after it happened, I think. They've recently been chopping them down to combat larch disease, and they've been doing this for 4 years, but it still continues to spread over Wales. It's also in Mid and North Wales, but we are still combating larch disease. But South Wales is the worst. I hope to see Cwmcarn Forest Drive conquer larch disease and end it forever in South Wales. I had the pleasure to interview Greg Leslie about deforestation. Please enjoy.
I'm Greg Leslie, and I teach A-level geography at Crosskeys campus, Coleg Gwent. So I teach the A-level geography. I used to teach the A-level geology as well, so I do a lot of stuff with the environmental side of it. And I teach a little bit of Welsh back and things like that, and a lot of students tend to choose things like environmental topics and things like that. So I do a lot of environmental stuff and climate change stuff. Well, besides the the A-level geography, but interested in things like climate change from a geography point of view, overpopulation, energy demands. Things like water and food availability as well. So that's a lot of what I teach, but I'm interested in it as well. I think deforestation is one of those things. If we're looking for a resource, a wood resource, I think from one point of view it is, like the desk in this room. It is needed because we can pretty much grow our own resources. I think we need to keep an eye on our rate of deforestation compared to how much we're actually growing. I think that's what we kind of need to keep an eye on. I think wood is probably, as a resource, is going to be used throughout the future. I think it'll hopefully kind of take over from using plastics and things like that. I think it is a global concern. Obviously, different parts of the world will have different needs. They'll also have different ecosystems, so they'll have different types of trees. So in some environments, we may have some trees are used. In other environments, if you're looking in sub-Saharan Africa, we're seeing an increase in desertification as the desert seems to be kind of coming into the environment. I think in this part of the world, yes. I live down in Gower, and deforestation and forest, very, very kind of minimal. It's mostly seems to be agricultural land and coastal environments. I think, deforestation, if you see the hills as you walk around here, you see very much kind of like a local issue around here. Yeah, so I think it'll have local issues, and I think there'll be local solutions to that as well. There's some large-scale policies. I think across Europe and the UK there are certain rates of kind of deforestation which they're allowing, and also kind of rates of afforestation to kind of catch up. So I think across Europe, I think we're under control. I probably not. I think that's probably a separate matter. I think in that instance, I think deforestation was probably allowed to get rid of the disease. It'll be interesting to know what sort of rate of kind of planting new trees that they've actually done to kind of compensate for that, because all that carbon has disappeared, all that ability to take CO2 from the environment seems to be taken out. So that'll be interesting to see what they're actually doing to compensate for that. I think countries have got to plant more trees than they're cutting down, and I think they need to see that it is financially viable for local communities. I think in a lot of places like in the Amazon, they're cutting it down to for cattle ranches and things like that. And it's got to come to the point where obviously the cows are valued higher than the actual trees. I think you need to get to the point where you move it back the other way, so people are trying to protect the trees. And I think if you plant one more tree than you cut down, that kind of carbon store, those environments to take CO2 out of the atmosphere, I think that's what countries should be doing. Pleasure. Thank you. Have a nice day as well.
What you're seeing right now is the effects of larch disease in Cwmcarn Forest Drive and a microscopic view of larch disease. As you can see, these are both very interesting videos, because one shows the effects of larch disease and how they've chopped down the trees, and another shows the effects of larch disease at a close angle, so you can see what's actually happening inside the tree. Natural Resource Wales are a government-based organisation that helps the community with world issues such as forestry, waste and energy issues. They have been working in Wales since the 1st of April 2013. Some of the campaigns they have done include a new system for managing time, Bont Evans Tree Works and Stabilisation, which is a project where they get rid of some of the trees on the hill next to Evans Bridge in Coins. Currently, they are helping with flooding all over South Wales in places such as Cwmcarn Forest Drive, as well as the large disease situation in Cwmcarn Forest Drive.
What do I think about deforestation? Well, obviously it's a terrible issue, which is affecting people all over the world every day, probably more so than some people realise. You know, we've got some facts and figures in front of us. For instance, 137 species of animals are becoming extinct each day due to deforestation and their habitats being destroyed, which is awful, you know, and it adds up to about 50,000 species of animals disappearing every single year, you know, due to deforestation. So it's awful, and we need to be looking after our world, and we need to be looking after the animals and, I guess, ourselves that live in this world. So we've all heard about the Australian wildfires that started, I think it was around about June last year. As far as I know, up until about the last couple of weeks, they were still going. I think I saw an article recently, maybe yesterday or something, that says that finally the last of the fires are actually starting to die out. If natural disasters and the global warming are affecting our Earth in that way and making us lose, you know, all our forestry and trees as a natural occurrence, then us as humans destroying those forest trees and trees and stuff as well is on top is only adding to the issue. You know, so I guess what I'm trying to say is it's bad enough we have to deal with the natural disasters, you know, without the human kind of like human destruction on top of that. The earth is doomed to fall unless we find a way to grow the trees back in certain areas of the world. I previously mentioned Brazil, where it was a far bigger issue than I think it currently is or will be in the future, due to what I just said about them promising to end, maybe not end deforestation as a whole, but end their part in deforestation by the year 2030. But it's definitely a global issue. I mean, it happens in the other side of the world, and it also happens like right here where we live. At the rate we're currently going, without change, and change is happening, but more change needs to happen. So I just mentioned that deforestation is obviously a global issue, and it affects all parts of the world, including where we live, in South Wales. And one of the most recent examples that come to mind would be at the Cwmcarn Forest Drive, where the trees were infected with a large disease, and then they were chopped down. And if you go to the scenic drive, if you're going to walk or drive actually down the path which takes you there, you can kind of see where there used to be trees, used to be really compact and really dense, but now there aren't many left, if any at all, and there's just kind of tree stumps where they've been chopped down and they've been killed. And I mean, as well as the fact that we need them as humans, it was beautiful scenery. You used to kind of walk in, and then you'd have the lake in front of you, and you'd have this massive like lush forest all around, surrounding the area, which slowly but surely, if we don't change the way we are, it's going to disappear, and there's going to be nothing left. There'll just be a lake and a vast open landscape. There are reasons for deforestation, you know, with the fact that the population continues to grow at some people would consider an alarming rate. So there needs to be land cleared for housing and things like that, and obviously with more people becomes more retail, and then so more businesses. Also developments for housing, you know, and manufacturing and things like that. But also, not only is the land being cleared to create space for these, but obviously there's wood and lumber and stuff like that, which is used in so much of these buildings, that you're not only taking away the trees from a certain area to create space, you're also taking the trees away from another area to create the materials needed. There are charities all over the world, I think, and companies, like I've said previously, combating against the whole deforestation thing. And there's some quite close to home as well, like the Size of Wales is a charity which helps with deforestation. Naturally a lot closer to home because, you know, it's Size of Wales, but the effect of their work kind of transcends globally. Then slowly but surely we'll start to tackle the deforestation problem. And whether it will be completely eradicated, I don't know, but we can make a dent in the issue, and we can slow down the rate of deforestation, and it all leads to a greater life for us on the earth. So people of a certain age would have been born before like the social media and the technology and things started to take over kids' lives. And personally, being someone who's kind of like early 20s, I think I was one of the last generations who kind of actually went out and played and explored my local area when I was younger. You know, being from the valleys, I live in between two mountains, and I spent a lot of time exploring those and getting lost during my childhood, playing games. You know, I don't think even now I've discovered like all of the little avenues and all the pathways and stuff which we could have taken, and it seems like the kids nowadays are not carrying on from where we did and exploring those mountains, so they haven't seen the bits I saw, or they haven't seen the bits which like me and my friends never found. Part of what made that so special was the forestry, and was the fact that you could explore all these different pathways between the trees, you know, and find the streams and the rivers and that kind of thing. But even now, say 10 years on from when I would have been exploring those kind of those areas, I know for a fact that deforestation has affected those forestries on those mountains. And there's a certain part which I used to go to which basically doesn't exist anymore. You know, it's just affecting everyone globally. It's affecting kids, some kids nowadays who do still go and explore, you know, instead of just sat at home on their PlayStation or on Facebook and Twitter and all that kind of thing. Some of them still do go and explore, not as many, but they're going to have like kind of less avenues to go down, less routes to explore, less forestry to play in, I guess, and just explore and learn about life.